Now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Hello and welcome to another week of the Pick and Go Rugby podcast. Thanks for joining us once again as we get ready to get stuck into all the latest action from Super Rugby Pacific. We've got a super round of rugby to recap from last weekend. Obviously the first weekend where New Zealand sides got a chance to get stuck into some of their neighbours from across the ditch. And I'm joined in studio again by the fantastic trio of Richard Laddie and Paul Moati. How are you, lads?
Very good, thank you. Yep, super round it was, and some super rugby to discuss and break down.
Paul?
Super.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Well, was it super punting wise?
No.
Certainly if you back the Brumbies.
Yeah, that was Sunday got
That was
off to a
absolute
very
lit.
good start.
I think we were all on the Brumbies, weren't we?
Yeah.
And boy did they come in.
Yeah, that was never in doubt.
And the money came on them as well, didn't
The
they?
money came.
Yeah.
They open favourites, I saw.
They were
They finished favourites, yeah.
Just before kickoff, they were $1.70 from
But-
$2.60.
Are they going to?
That is a huge move. I don't remember a move as significant as that in a long, long time.
And you've been watching moves like that a long, long time. So
Trying to keep my finger on the pulse.
for you to say that is very meaningful. Are they going to close favourites again this week, do we think? Not to foreshadow events later in the podcast.
I don't think so, but I think they will probably close closer to the $2 mark than the, what are they, $2.30 at the moment?
Yeah, about that. I think 3.5 point favourites. But we've got, we should take a look back to all the events in Melbourne from last week before we take a look ahead. There's actually a few really interesting games this week, so we'll get stuck into those. But what did we learn over those? I said it was the first time we've seen New Zealand teams taking on Australian teams and Fijian teams and whatnot this season. Richard, was the gap closer than you expected, further apart, Highlanders excluded?
It was probably about where I expected. I expected the Aussie teams to put up a fight, and they sort of did. You know, the Reds sort of came out firing. They were up 17-0, and then the second half they just forgot they were playing rugby. And even the Waratahs, there was only 3 points in it with about.
They could have won.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
very nervous for a while in the second half.
My value bet was Chiefs 21-30, so I was happy with
Well
how that game finished up. But yeah, they put up a fight. But I think I don't know if you guys saw the sort of post-match interview with Tate McDermott after the Reds game, and he sort of said he realised the things they were getting away with playing against Australian teams. They just can't afford to. Against the New Zealand teams, and they sort of made them pay for it. Even the Crusaders, that what was only 4 points in at halftime against the Rebels. It could have been a lot more.
How they only scored 7 points in that first half.
And how they didn't cover.
Yeah.
It was looking pretty good with 10 minutes to go, and then it wasn't. And then they nearly scored 2 tries in the last 2 minutes of the game. But yeah, it was. I was about where I expected. I thought they'd put up a fight. They ended up covering 3 of the 5 games. Did they? Yeah. So. Yeah,
3 or 4 against Australian opposition if we're gonna.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so still plenty for them to work on, but I reckon that there'll be a few more wins for the Australian teams in the comp.
What did you put in the notebook from Super Round, Paul?
Still a big question mark over the Australian side. So I thought at times the New Zealand sides sort of kept them in the game more through things that they were doing wrong, as opposed to opportunities that the Australian teams were creating. So I guess a lot of it comes down to, first of all, team selection. And when I guess the coaches and the selectors decide to rest certain players in certain games, I think that has quite a major effect on how the game plays out. So I think the Australian sides, as a whole, performed slightly better than I expected them to. If you focus on the Brumbies, they performed very, very well. And the Reds, I mean, they were looking good in that first half.
They were
looking very, very good. But as I said after the game, it's like you make mistakes and then the New Zealand teams will make you pay. So I expect the gap to start to grow in the coming weeks.
Yeah, for me, one thing I sort of thought, particularly from the Hurricanes game and the Chiefs game, was these New Zealand teams, I might have been nervous watching the game as someone who'd backed them both, but they knew they could sort of put their foot down for 15, 20 minutes and just they had that extra gear that the Australian teams couldn't go with. So especially after you've had 9-10 weeks of intense local derbies, everyone's probably pretty beat up. This was a chance for them all to sort of take a breath, rest a few guys. So I think for the next couple of weeks, maybe be wary of backing a few of those big starts, because it's very much a case of get the 5 points and or get the 4 points. And
they don't care that they're 21.5 point favourites. They just want the 5 points.
This is sort of like the mid-season lull, and then as we get closer to finals, we might sort of see teams start gearing up, naming full strength teams again the last couple of weeks. But I think as a whole, I'm going to say Brumbies/Highlanders excluded, because they look to be the outliers in terms of the two conferences in terms of competing and not. But I'd say New Zealand teams are going to go into most of these Trans-Tasman games knowing when we need to, we can score 15 points in 12 minutes sort of thing and claw a game back or put a game out of reach.
You don't want to be in that position.
But but it's the Hurricanes. They're going to be in that position.
Yeah, they will be.
Even the Chiefs game, like, it was sort of, there was a couple of intercepts and bits and pieces involved there, but they sort of just, that forward pack started rolling over the Waratahs in the last 20, and then Jonah Lowe had acres of space out on the wing to stroll over. So
give me the ball.
Yeah,
they did.
Share it around, Jonah. Some of us have got same game multis on. We do have to talk about the southern set of New Zealand sides, though. Obviously, the only team to go down. It's been already a tough season for the Highlanders, and it only got worse on Sunday afternoon after they were pretty thoroughly taken care of by the Brumbies. How concerned do the Highlanders need to be now? Are they staring down the barrel of missing the quarterfinals, do you think, Richard?
Well, how do we look at their games to come? I got the Drua away this weekend, which will be in Fiji and Suva, I think. So I'm sure that'll be a tough ask. We saw what the sort of Drua did against the Blues. They sort of threw everything at them, and I'm sure there would have been a few bruised Blues bodies from some of those hits.
They didn't take a backward step.
No. I mean, I was all over the minus 30.5. The Blues
without a lot of first choice players as well.
Yeah, and the Blues relied on two intercepts. Just sort of, and they were always sort of just that little bit further ahead of the Drua. But now the Drua didn't give up, and I think the Highlanders will be in for. I can't believe that they're $4.50 or whatever it is now for the Drua, and then they've got the Reds in Brisbane, so that'll be a tough ask as well, So it's a couple of tough games, and they've got the Force at home, Waratahs at home, and the Rebels at home. So they'll be happy to sort of be coming home and playing some of those sort of weaker Australian teams. But depending on how sort of probably the Force and the Rebels go, it'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I just had a look before. There is no market for Highlanders to make the quarterfinals, but they were. To miss, but they were paying like $1.20 not a couple of weeks ago to make, and even then I was sort of like, it's too short, and they look in a real rut, 1-8, one of the 9 games and the 10th on the table, so they can't really afford to lose this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
They might have to rely on points for and against. So I'm not sure if there's a tiebreaker, if two teams are tied on the same amount of points, what is the result between the two teams, or.
It's a good question, Paul. Yeah.
It could come down to that. It may not if they lose to the Drua this weekend, which the bookies don't have much faith in the Fijians. But
they haven't all season. I mean, they have only won one game, to be fair, but
they've been
they've been playing great footy.
Yeah. And back home.
Yeah. We'll get to that game in a second.
Right,
but, it's going to be something else in Suva on Saturday Arvo, I'm sure. So. Very excited for that one. I think the big problem with the Highlanders, is they're just getting smashed up front. Like that Brumbies game wasn't a back and forth game where the Brumbies pulled out. If they don't drop that ball in the first minute, God knows what could have happened in there. It could have been completely. But the Brumbies they didn't really have to deviate from plan A. It was
they were always one step ahead, And I mean, the Highlanders had that little comeback in the second half, but even then, you just sort of felt the Brumbies were just.
They've got under control.
Yeah, and it was all sort of smoke and mirrors. Like the Highlanders really just started chucking it around because they had to. There was Marty Banks was throwing a few kicks out to the wing and which came off, but that's not sustainable over 6 weeks when you've got sure they're a weak for New Zealand, but you look at all the All Black talent or young talent and they're not where they were a couple of years ago, but they're still good rugby players. They shouldn't be relying on that to beat. Yeah. I don't know. I think.
They just seem to lack the depth, they just don't have. I mean, obviously, having Frizzell out and Dixon out, and Smith was out for the game. So they're just, they're kind of like, they're really not getting anywhere, and any ball they're getting, they're just sort of unable to sort of really capitalize and make the opportunities. I had a stat there sort of in the sort of stats for the season. As a team, they're in the bottom 2 for defenders beating and clean breaks both. So they're just they're struggling to sort of on attack just to get anything going. And
I think the bulk of the breaks that they have been getting probably through Umaga Jensen. And so I guess it just goes to show that they really have struggled to create things when they have ball in hand.
I feel like their backline, they just can't quite get it figured out right. It's very disjointed. It's all sort of Umaga Jensen or Gunn Basham mainly have been doing some good things one-on-one and beating their man. But weird for Tony Brown side, there's not a lot of like great backline moves where they're.
I think Hunt struggled for the season, and they sort of pushed all their sort of chips in with Hunt, and he's just, I don't know if he's 100% fit, whether he's got a niggling injury or, but he showed glimpses last season, and if he could have been built on that, then I think that backline would have been functioning a lot better. But he has struggled a wee bit. We saw Whakatau when he came out. We saw him struggle to begin with. He certainly started to step it up now, but they just, they have a whole lot of bits and pieces that don't quite fit together at the moment. And I guess that's up to Tony Brown and the coaching team to sort of try and get that cohesion going. It's really hard though when you're in this cycle of losing. And
if they do, like, so they've got not tough, well, they are tough games. They're going to be favourites this week and next week, but they're both certainly games they could lose. And if they lose, this week, you've got to think the heads are really going to drop. That's probably the quarterfinal, and it could get ugly the last few weeks of the season. They're probably lucky they've got those weaker sides sort of at the back end of their Australian schedule that they can probably scrape through against. But
at home as well, I think that having those 3 games at home will be crucial.
But that's. I don't think we can probably go on about the Highlanders, but might as well be positive, and do have to give a shout out to their opponents this week, the Drua, who I think were probably in a losing effort, the highlight of Super Round in a lot of ways. That performance against the Blues, they were one team as well who had a lot of support behind them in Melbourne. It seemed like they actually, obviously having the Super Rugby W final before the Fijiana Drua, getting up against the Waratahs. Side note, how are we not having Chiefs Manawa versus Drua Women as the main event in Suva on Sunday night after the Highlanders game? But we'll keep working on that one. Maybe
that's another chat.
Yeah. How good would that be? But I think Super Round as a whole, what we you sort of.
I like the concept.
I
do like the concept.
Do you like the location, Paul?
Certainly not at that time of the year. There was a huge who the Pies were playing
Essendon
down the road at the MC, and they packed out that stadium. The Warriors even got a few supporters on Monday night. I just think I realised that it was originally scheduled for, was it round 2, the Super Round, and that slot may have worked out well. It would have worked a wee bit better because this was a terrible slot for them to be in, Anzac weekend, where they have that traditional AFL matchups and the traditional NRL matchups. So it didn't quite pan out for them. I still don't think Melbourne's probably the right place. If I was to have it in Australia, I'd probably look up at Brisbane.
What, so we can just be more like the NRL?
Or if I was to bring it here, I'd take it to one of the smaller, I'm not talking country, but I'm talking one of the smaller sort of provinces, somewhere like and of course I'd have to have the infrastructure and around them to host all, what was it, 14 teams?
12 teams.
All 12 teams.
14 if you include the women's sides as well.
They should.
Yeah. The interesting, all the teams were staying in one hotel. Cody Taylor was saying, I don't know what he had a comment after the Crusaders game. Going, it's a bit weird, all the teams in one hotel, but I'm sure there's some stories there. Yeah, but if you were, so where's your pick of the provincial, or if you were picking Super Rugby's Super Round location for next year, Paul, where are you putting it?
I'm thinking Hamilton, maybe. If not Hamilton, then maybe down south, maybe Otago.
Yeah. I think Dunedin would be great. They don't have the accommodation, right? Like, it's impossible to get a hotel there the best of times.
I
So,
guess so you could go out to
Hire a few
Queenstown sort of
Airbnbs.
thing. And
yeah.
how far is it? Like, what's the drive from Queenstown?
3.5. Well, they were doing it during the bubble earlier in the
Yeah.
season. Yeah.
That's 2,500.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's not too bad.
No, we can do it. Yeah. You got any other ideas? We'd like to?
Queenstown's
Yeah.
probably my.
Okay.
If they had the infrastructure, it'd be cool to do it in Queenstown, or like, but probably Dunedin would make sense with the stadium and all that. But yeah, that's a problem with infrastructure. I mean, the obvious choice in New Zealand's Eden Park, obviously, but I think it'd be too big. And well, they might fill it out, but I just feel like if it was Eden Park, it might be a bit. They wouldn't be able to fill it out, and wonder whether it look a bit sad. Like it looked a bit sad. Looking at the crowds, and he's like, it's not a massive stadium, Amy Stadium, but they looked a wee way from filling it up. And I read somewhere that there was no halftime entertainment. They didn't have the sort of entertainment in between the games.
It was ordering Magic Round on Wish.
Yeah.
Wow. I think it was. It was like, well, the NRL did this really cool thing. Let's do a much less well-organized version of it.
Yeah. And I understand the sort of mindset going for Melbourne. It's the sporting capital, and you have a look at it with the Rod Laver and the MCG and the road and all that. But yeah, I think just the support for rugby in Melbourne's just not there, and it was a terrible weekend to do it.
You do it when they've got nothing else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I reckon if you're going to do it in Park, you kick it off with Moana Pacifica Drua on the Friday night. That'd be, in terms of
huge,
a game that you'd actually pack it out for. You think about like the scenes we saw. I know it's not a one-for-one comparison, but Tonga versus Samoa and the Rugby League World Cup and things like that. You could get an awesome atmosphere for that. But I'd like to see it, and this is maybe a little bit of
Manawatu. Who would have thought? Wow.
I was actually going to say Hawke's Bay. I think they've got all the infrastructure and everything there. It's a great setting. Have it early in the season when the weather's still great in Hawke's Bay, and that'd be a great way to kick off the set. But there's one right answer for this, and it's Suva. Get Super around it. The players would be all for it. You've got the accommodation. How good would that be? Like, in terms
the amount of people that would go over.
Yeah. In terms of like turning into a spectacle, I'd like, there's probably some commercial interests that wouldn't agree with this, but Super Round and Suva next year, we're making it happen. On
Super Suva.
How good would that be? Right?
Yeah.
It's a great shout, actually. That would be awesome.
Or
and, the resorts would, everyone go over and stay in resorts.
I don't know if
like a holiday of it.
I don't know if they're still talking about building a stadium near Dinero Island, but I'm going over in a few weeks. So I'll talk to a few contractors and see what's going on there. And I think that would be an awesome event. Like we're going to see on Saturday how the Fijians get behind their footy. Just think about like the scenes during the Olympic Sevens and everything like that. That would be. It might not provide the sort of the commercial, I don't know, whatever KPIs or Sands are looking for, but in terms of marketing Super Rugby to a wider audience and getting social clips and all that sort, and building excitement around the comp, I can't think of anything that would be better than that. So I'm gonna just throw that idea out there.
Get some good content over the players on the beach, helping pick coconuts and that sort of thing.
Probably need a pick and go podcast live from ANZ Stadium on the Friday afternoon as well.
Talk to our people.
Yeah.
Always an ulterior motive with you.
There always is, Paul. And as somebody also always has an ulterior motive, that glass house just went smash. But we're going to stay in Suva though, because I think the first game we need to talk about this weekend is 4:35 Saturday afternoon. Drua finally getting to host their first game in Fiji against the Highlanders, whose struggles we've already gone well into on this podcast. 30 degrees, thunderstorms, 85% humidity. Suva on Saturday afternoon. How do you think the Highlanders are going to enjoy that one?
Not too much. And the Drua have obviously targeted this game. They rested a few players last week. They knew they want to put their best team on the park this weekend at home in front of their home. It's going to be electric, the atmosphere. Well, certainly for the home team. Not so sure about the Highlanders. They're going to do it tough. And if the conditions are wet and humid, I think it just brings those two teams closer together yet again. And I think the 450 you're getting at the moment, I'm not sure. I had a look last night. They were 450 last night. If you're still getting that, I think you're getting a nice little Fijian present, to be fair. And I'll take them plus the points now. What are they? 420 now.
They're 420.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't see that I don't think there's going to be a lot of money coming from the Highlanders, right? 11.5 if it is. Yeah, and we've talked about it in the past. Drua to trail at halftime, lead at full time bet's been a favourite of the podcast this year. It's only come in once, but I think it's probably still going pretty well ROI wise. Like if the Highlanders, if the Drua can stay in the fight for the first 60, you've got to think the crowd and the conditions are going to help them run over the top, right?
The Highlanders have shown they just don't have that, that sort of killer instinct in the last sort of 15, 20 minutes of a few games where they could have won, but they just really lacking that creativity. So this is going to be a great game for 4:30 on Saturday, is it?
Yep, 4:35 Saturday afternoon. And that's the other, like the Highlanders, I don't think they don't have a lot of points in them. Even we saw against Moana Pacifica, they really struggled, and then it was the last 20. They got a lot of penalties, kicked for the corner, and all the points came off rolling balls. Really, like the Drua, they've got their own issues at line out time and everything like that. But if you give them enough ball, they've got such electric backs. Like the way Habos has been playing all season, Ravovo in the midfield as well. These guys are going to create opportunities, especially against a pretty disjointed and experienced back line. Surely they're going to score enough points to at least keep it competitive. So,
well, we've said that the Highlanders struggle to create opportunities. And so, as you say, the rolling maul, and that is where they get a lot of their points from. The conditions will probably favour them in that. But I just think the Fijians are going to rise so much from being back home that it's going to be very, very tough. I expect to see that forward pack actually stand up a bit more than they have over the last couple of weeks. I think they were getting a wee bit tired. I think this will give them another boost getting back. So I'm very keen to jump on the Fijians. If you got the 450, you've done well.
Yeah, and their scrums have been very good all season. Like the line-out's been a massive issue, but they rested both starting props last week, or I don't know if maybe one of them's got an injury, but they both went in the team for the Blues. So the Highlanders scrum wasn't, should we say, quite at the level of the Brumbies. So I think they'll at least be able to get parity in that area and give their backs a pretty good platform whenever if there is a few drop balls and everything in the humidity. So yeah, I don't know, like. Obviously, the Highlanders can win this one, but I think you got to be on the plus and the big price. Like Highlanders plus minus 11.5. Just that's a big
not a team that's only won one game this year, and as you said, did it in pretty unconvincing. The rolling maul that we've seen so much of, and the Drua will be aware of that, and they'll be trying to sort of combat that as well. So. Sign me up for the plus in this game for sure. And I just think that last week for the Highland this season, they've just lacked that direction. I think like Hunt's definitely not, like they sort of throw all their sort of everything at him, and he hasn't really lived up to the expectation this year. He's had probably 1 or 2 good games, but on the whole, he's just lacking direction. And they had him at 15 and Banks at 10 the other day, and neither of them really gave the team any sort of direction. And a lot of kicking. It was like sometimes that game was like a bloody force back, game of force back. Hey, it was jeepers. So I think, and they're struggling. So Aaron Smith will probably be back, so it's going to be a big in. And I think Kelly too was also back. I think he's been pretty good.
That is a big in.
Yeah, for like a team that has struggled. But sign me up for the plus.
Is the Drua captain, I think his suspension's finished from the
is that
3 weeks from when he.
I think it was 4 weeks.
Right.
So
it might be one more. That but he'd be a bit just in terms of keeping a calm head in that atmosphere. Like say it's almost the same as Aaron Smith.
I think I'm pretty sure he was 4 weeks. They wanted to try and make it.
So even still, they're going to get a lot of big ins back. So like, I don't think one out is 4 week suspension, but
it's the last week, is it?
Could be. I'm trying to do the math in my head.
Pretty sure.
That's a shame for him though, just missing that game. But is there anyone else? I think Aaron Smith's probably going to be the key man for the Highlanders, right? And keeping a calm head in what should be a pretty wild atmosphere. Anyone else you sort of in the forward pack maybe that
maybe Lynch's providing he plays. I think he had a pretty good game. Who's captain Brumbies in a pretty lackluster performance from the team in a whole, but I thought he was pretty good. So if he sort of gets to start again, I think that he'll kind of be expected to just keep the go forward going and put some pressure on at the breakdown and all that, So
I think it's a tight 5.
Right.
A tight 5. If the Highlanders can get ascendancy in the set pieces, especially the scrum, then they are a chance. But I just can't take them at $1.20. Can't take them minus 11.5. Fiji, I think they're a great bet this weekend.
I'm not sure if I'm just like sort of talking myself into it because of my love for the Drua is obviously well documented, but yeah, I do think they're a red hot chance this week. And if it's a 5, even a 10-point game with 20 minutes to go, strap in because it's going to be a fun finish. So yeah, looking forward to that one. Anything else you want to touch on before we move to our next big preview?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, the next game I've got circled here, I think it should be pretty interesting. Didn't get to see Moana Pacifica last week, so there's still probably a few questions about how they'll match up against the Australian teams. I was surprised though to see them pretty like 5.5 point, pretty reasonable underdogs against the Rebels, who kept the Crusaders close for 40 minutes and score only, because that was a pretty one-sided kind of. It looked like they had no chance of stopping the Crusaders anytime they got their hands on the ball. Were you guys as surprised as me to see the odds like they were when they opened up?
Yeah, I think we're being slightly generous towards the Rebels.
Well, not us, but the bookies.
Yeah,
we're never generous towards the Rebels.
To be fair, I guess to be fair to the Melbourne side, they have shown signs of improvement over the last couple of weeks.
They've actually won twice in the last month or so.
So
and I think they've covered about 4 or 5 straight. They are kind of like they got pretty close to the Reds, I think, did they a few weeks ago, and had those year wins against the Drua and Force. So I actually wasn't surprised to see it, but it still feels yuck.
Yeah, just look at obviously it was a different Crusaders team, but the Moana Pacific game was the exact against the Crusaders. It was a while ago now. It was the exact opposite though, where Moana Pacific were actually very competitive, and the Crusaders didn't have a lot of opportunities, but capitalized on the few opportunities they did have. So I just struggle to. I think Moana Pacific can keep this. This Rebels team's not anything to write home about with ball in hand. I think they can defend very well against them. Yeah, it's unfortunate they had to delay a game because of COVID, but it wasn't COVID in their camp for once. So they actually got a bye week. Essentially, they can sort of. They were just over in Melbourne. Sakopa Kepu was doing the rounds on Stan Sport and Sky Sport and everything. I think they probably had a chance to refresh, get some after those 2 storm weeks and 3 weeks or whatever it was. Probably wasn't the worst thing with this. This is a game they're definitely going to be targeting. I do think, I think they can keep the Rebels in check. It might be a pretty attritional game, but that makes me even more keen on the 5.5, really.
Yeah, they've had some big losses in the last 4 or 5 weeks, haven't they? They obviously had that close game against the Crusaders, and then they lost to got the win against the Hurricanes, and their stock was sort of on the rise, but they've kind of struggled. They've got about 30 points put on them by the Blues. But
both those Blues games were close, really, with 25 minutes to go. I think the Blues got out to about $1.70 head-to-head in that first game on the Tuesday when Nepo Lailala got sent off. That was... if you're talking about taking different form lines, what's the Blues versus the Rebels form line? They were...
That's it, the Rebels kind of feels bad, but they've been covering. I've been backing against them. I've been covering every week, it's 5.5 point favourites. It's weird. I just don't know whether that... I think Moana Pacifica would have rather played last week, wouldn't they? Just to get a bit of momentum rolling. They've had such a disrupted season. They're going to have another midweek game now, aren't they? So
yeah. I think in the long run it was a bad thing for them. I just think for this game in particular,
this is a winnable game.
Such a tough run.
Yeah.
So they had the big loss to the Hurricanes, and even they had a 33-point loss to the Chiefs, but that was another one where it sort of blew out late.
They can play 80 minutes, I mean, they're really the importance of it, weren't they? And they've kind of struggled in that final 20 minutes of a lot of the games, and that's when the New Zealand teams run away with it. I think they did cover against the Highlanders in the end, didn't they?
Yeah, by 1 point, half a point.
That's right. Yeah. That's what I thought.
I think the break's good.
Yeah.
I think it gives them a chance to sort of regroup. There's a few Australian-based players in the team, obviously, so they would have had another extra week just to get things all ironed out. I'm sure they would have been absolutely gunning to play last weekend, but they'll be fizzing when they come out this weekend. So
probably had an opportunity to work on their rolling maul defense, given they've just been over in Melbourne essentially in camp for the last 2 weeks.
And you would think that's one aspect of the game that they would have worked on.
Wonder if anyone wandered over the Crusaders and tapped Jason Ryan on the show and said, "Hey, can we just borrow you for 20 minutes?"
We're all in the same hotel. Yeah. No, but I think they'll come out fizzing. I think they're a really good first half bet.
Yeah, I suppose the question is, but are the Rebels blowing anyone off the park? Or I suppose, did they outscore the Crusaders in the last 20? Yeah.
I don't think
Oh.
they did in the end, did they?
I just keep thinking of the last kick that went dead. That's all.
Prayers for my Sunday night multi.
Don't we all? Yeah. But in terms of Minnesota as well, we sort of talked about them as a whole. I do think this is an option. We're really excited about a few of their players prior to this break. Like the midfielders, the ones who've been sort of getting all the attention, but the loose forwards have been great as well. A couple of their front rowers. Who are you sort of most excited to see now they've got a chance to probably, get their hands on a bit more ball and not just be defending rolling mauls the entire time? Who do you think for them really could step up in this sort of 6 weeks against the Australian teams?
A good friend from the Hawke's Bay.
Which one? They've got about 6 of them.
Well, they do. He wears a 10 jersey, usually.
Right. Do you think he's going to get more game time now?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think they've probably settled on who's the ex-Wallaby?
Lealiifano. And to be fair, Lealiifano has been great.
He has.
I think his signing's been flown a bit under the radar. The way he's got their backline organised in the first half of that first game against the Chiefs at Mount Smart, where it was actually pretty close for about 40 minutes. He had that beautiful ball, I think it was Formai on the wing, where he cut out about 4 guys and had him right on the chest. So
yeah, well, whoever's in the 10 jersey, I do think it'll be Lealiifano. I think will have a major effect on just how well that team does. So I'm really looking forward to seeing who suits up.
Yeah,
and I think both their halfbacks go really well with front football. Just look what Irianari did for Hawke's Bay when behind a dominant forward pack. I don't think they're going to be a dominant forward pack, but they're certainly going to be more on par. So
it's definitely a very, very winnable game for them. And they're loose forwards as well. Tim Stowers in particular, like he's been. I feel like I didn't feel like he didn't play at least the last more specific game, or maybe even the last 2 games. So they gave him a bit of a. Don't think there was an injury. So providing he's playing, I think that he'll be huge around the breakdown, and just he's really good at getting that sort of go forward ball. And he was the first couple of weeks he was probably one of the form back rows in the comp.
He was huge in that Crusaders game. In the first game. Tamatoa is another one as well. Get him a bit more ball out wide and see what he can do.
Was he injured at the start of the season? Or
He
was,
I don't actually know.
They weren't playing him for sort of the first 3 or 4 weeks, but it seems like he's sort of played his way into the team, and he's had some big games. So I love to watch him play. He was so good in for Tasman last year. So
Vizini is another one as well. It'd be good to see. I don't know what his injury status is at the moment, but if he was great for Hawke's Bay last year. So
oh boy, he was huge.
I think. Fingers crossed. I'd love to see them get a win this week and really get a bit of momentum going into the rest of their Australian. Don't quite know when that Force game is going to slot in, but they do have, they can be. They've got the Waratahs at Mount Smart. Is that next? Yeah, next Saturday afternoon. So
that'll be the first time playing Mount Smart with full crowd. Will it?
Was one of the Blues games? No.
Or maybe it was. Or maybe it was midweek.
That was midweek. Yeah.
It was a catch-up game.
Saturday afternoon at Mount Smart. It's a real shame. I would love to see a Drua minor double header even in Auckland. Not necessarily playing the same game, but it could have gone at 4:30, 7 o'clock or something. But if they could, beat the Rebels and then get a bit of momentum behind you for a home game against a Waratahs team, they can certainly give a run for their money too. That'd be great.
Yeah. We'll see.
We will. Speaking of we'll see, Brumbies Hurricanes. Sunday afternoon, Canberra. Brumbies 2 for 2 against New Zealand sides. What are we thinking?
They don't have the worst record against the Canes.
They've won at least 2 of their last 3.
And they don't have the worst record at home as well. Well, last year, wasn't it? It was that 12-10.
Yeah. Jordy missed the kick in the last minute, was it? From about 50 out.
It was from the sideline as well. It wasn't in front.
No. But the Hurricanes had a chance to win it. Didn't the Hurricanes bomb a couple of tries in that game as well?
A couple.
And there may have been there was that Savia try that was called back for a knock on. It was sort of like a pretty dubious call. It was
centenary celebrations that night. So I wasn't super aware.
I'm surprised you remember that.
I do remember we were watching that last kick at least.
Yeah, so they obviously, they won last week, and they played a great game last week. They've obviously shown they play a good brand of footy, and I think if they get off to a good start and like they registered against the Hurricanes last week, I think that they're in a better position to hold on to that lead. So Hurricanes have sort of probably been known to not play for 80 minutes this season, and I think that they'll
Been known not
have
to play
to
for 20 minutes.
yeah, and they'll have to really step up there. So I think the odds are about right. I think the Hurricanes are they're definitely on the up. They'll be happy that they sort of came back and was ending up being a 13+ win last week. So I had the plus, and I had Hurricanes 1-12, so it was a heartbreaking sort of result for me.
Welcome to the Hurricane.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that I'll probably be siding with plus in this game. I think that the Brumbies will they did enough, and I think that in the tight five and all that, I think that they're going to have a clear advantage in the set piece that Hurricanes probably hasn't been their strongest sort of area so far this season. So I had a wee look. They only were 8. Well, they lost 5 of their lineouts last week, and they just won't be able to afford to sort of lose too many at the set piece against the Brumbies, who are a team who have a very, very clear plan that seems to be working at the moment.
It certainly works against the Canes.
Yeah.
Are you a bit concerned about this maybe stylistic matchup where the Brumbies could gain a bit of ascendancy up front and
just grind the game out of the Hurricanes?
Yeah.
Earn 75% of the ball. Canes feeding off scraps. It's got a dangerous look about this game, and the Brumbies will be buoyed by that win over the Highlanders.
Yeah.
They know they can beat New Zealand sides. They know they can beat the Hurricanes. They've done that before.
They've won 5 of the last 6 versus the Canes at home as well. So,
boy.
And the last game last year was 12-10. The game before in Canberra was pretty low scoring as well, 24-12. That sort of scoreline is the one the Brumbies want to see. But last time they played in New Zealand, it was 43-13.
If it's a blow, if it's a high scoring game, you're pretty certain the Hurricanes are on top.
And that's where I do think it being a Sunday afternoon game plays into the Canes' hands. If it was Saturday night at 7:30 local time, 3 or 4 degrees
chilly,
in Canberra as it can get, I don't think as it was last year, I don't think the Canes would be so keen on it. But maybe the Canes, that's certainly the last 2 games, they've only seemed to score points about whenever they've got their hands on a set piece and gone that way. So I don't know if the Brumbies will give them enough set pieces and advantageous position to do that.
Yeah, I was having a look to the stats yesterday, and at one point during that game, the penalty count was 9. In that first half, the penalty count was 9-2 in the Reds' advantage. So they can't afford to do that again. They'll have to work on their discipline. I mean, they obviously got those 2 yellow cards, both of which were sort of, I don't know, a little bit soft, I suppose, but won't go there. They won't afford to. Yeah, if they get off to a bad start and the Brumbies get on a roll early, I think that the Brumbies are much more structured and they play a much better game than the Reds. That they won't blow a lead like that. So the Hurricanes will be aware of that and they'll be doing their best to start strong, I'm sure.
So I guess as sort of what we're saying, it all depends on which Hurricanes team shows up.
I think that you can say that for any weekend the Hurricanes play.
Because if they play like they did against the Crusaders, they win this game by 20 points, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
They've got a bit of consistency in the backline they've announced this week as well.
It's not an exact same backline.
I know, a bit of consistency.
Alive,
Is it a backline we've seen this season?
I think we might have, unfortunately. But
with Garden at 10? Right?
I don't know. I don't know if we've seen Uminga, Jensen, Sullivan with the rest of them. So the dream might still be alive, guys. We might be on for a different backline every week for an entire season.
Lovely back to 15.
He is, yeah.
Or he should be.
I think so. I think he can affect the game more from there. A more varied way. Like he does it roll at 12 and he does it well compared. But I think Peter Uminga Jensen can do 80-90% of their own. Like Peter Uminga Jensen was an All Black. Like he's capable of having very good games. Valen Sullivan is flying.
Yeah,
he should be in the 13 jersey for the rest of the season, unless he gets injured. I think he's locked that jersey up. Yeah.
And the fact they've gone for that Uminga Jensen Sullivan sort of midfield combo 2 weeks in a row is probably a good sign. The midfield's really been a bit of a question the whole season, but I think those 2 played pretty well last. I mean Sullivan in particular. He's huge. I
think they found the best midfield pairing for the Canes.
Absolutely.
And having Geordie, I agree. Geordie at the back, you get more out of him in the 15 than you do in the 12. in a team-wide sense. It's like he's still a great, brilliant player in the 12 jersey, but we lose something at 15. Whereas I don't think we lose as much when he's at 15 and Umaga Jensen's in the 12.
I think he'd really learned to insert himself at the right times from the 15 spot as well. I think back to the performance in the first game of the year against the Crusaders. He was sort of making these timed runs from deep and slotting into the back line and really reading the game well. So I think giving him more chances to do that, it's only going to get better and better. And I would love to see this particular backline they've named as well with Ruben at 10 once he's back healthy. I think that could really unlock things for the midfield in particular.
Looks very exciting.
Yeah. So
Rayasi's been playing well on the. I mean, they've got some riches out wide.
Where's Hurson? Like, just I don't know what there could be injured, but the man just plays well and then doesn't seem to get a start the next week. Like,
is he injured?
Don't know what the story is.
They might just be resting him.
Ruben was injured last week and I was complaining about him not playing, so I'm just treading carefully here.
Even though he's injured, he should still be out there. Well, maybe. But they do, like Rayasi and Xavier and Hussein. That's a nice little, it's a problem that you probably want to have who to leave out as opposed to, crikey, who do I put in?
And it's not the Crusaders backline, but they're all really good players in their own right. There's no one there you're looking at going, geez, how's he got a Super Rugby contract or anything like that? So I think, and TJ still hasn't been back in the setup for a while. He had the injury at the start of the year. He's only going to get more reps with that team and get better. So
he'll be on the hunt for that try score record as well.
He will be, and
I think he's 3 tries away, and Xavier as well. Yeah,
as we were discussing before the podcast, I'd like the third All Black 9 spot. I think is reasonable for grabs. I don't think TJ is just going to walk into that spot, especially after all the stuff last year. So
Christie's playing well, and
Cortez Ratimer's been.
Was
he not number 2?
TJ?
Yeah.
Well, I think Brad Weber's clearly the second halfback, right?
Just right.
Okay.
Jamie Booth. Throw his name out there, Patrick.
Justice for Jamie. Bring back the Sunwolves so Jamie can get the platform he deserves. That's what I say.
What a forward pack going backwards all day.
Didn't stop him when he ran all over the Chiefs at FMG Stadium.
One of the great.
That'll be the first game on our Greatest Games of Super Rugby podcast series coming out this summer. But before we get to that, I don't know if there's anything else we need to touch on. I was sort of trying to match up the form lines for these two teams, but it's hard. Like the Hurricanes snuck past the Highlanders, the Brumbies snuck past the Reds, and then they sort of switch. And then it
could be in for a pretty
game. One thing to consider as well is you sort of plan out how results might go. I think we can very well see a rematch of this game in the 4 versus 5 behind. And this game could possibly decide where that's played. And we just talked about the Hurricanes record in Canberra. They're probably not going to want to go back there deeper into winter.
No.
So
it might be an evening game as well. So
just something to keep in mind there. But we'll just shoot around the grounds now. Don't have time to go too in depth on the other 3 games. Probably the most interesting of the 3 games we haven't touched on yet is Reds versus Chiefs on Friday night. Paul, what are your thoughts here?
Oh, I see the Reds are getting a couple of players back. In particular, was it Scott Young on the blind side, who I don't think we've seen since round 1 or round 2 when he got injured. So that's a big, huge plus for him, especially seeing as Sam Cane isn't taking part for the Reds. Having said that, crikey, that still looks like a very, very solid forward pack that the Reds have got there, especially up front. Ta'avao, Tokiaho. It's going to be very, very tough for the Reds, unfortunately, for those boys. And Nankivell, boy, has he put his hand up over the last few weeks. He's got to be in some sort of talk around the All Black midfield, just with the way things have gone with other players and injuries and things. I know a few players are coming back, but he's one that's just said, well, I'm playing well.
If you're picking it on form, he'd be I don't know if there's any midfielders in New Zealand going better than him at the moment.
No, he is really, really playing well. I've been really impressed with him. So
Tapia back on the wing, which is interesting.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. I guess they're trying a few things out. I don't think they have to.
No.
They're travelling okay. I mean,
is Tapia on the wing? Ian Foster tap on the shoulder?
You mean like Geordie in the 12 jersey? Oh, here we go. Conspiracies.
Quite happy he's got a lot of talent though, so it does make sense to want to give him a run in the midfield and get him some experience. So,
in the end, I just think this Reds team, this Chiefs team will be just a wee bit too good for the Reds. I don't think they'll be as ill-disciplined as the Canes were last week against the Reds. So the opportunities that the Reds get will be far and few between. And in the set piece, the Chiefs, I think, are just way too strong.
Yeah.
Too strong.
I think, Red's forward pack that's probably going to be going backwards without O'Connor at 10 to sort of do some of his magic. Tate McDermott's probably not going to be as effective with his scoots and everything if he's just got the likes of so Cooler and Jacobson breathing down his neck all night.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Tupuai, Josh Lord. God, they've got a lot of good forwards. Can we please have a lock, Chiefs?
Who was the second five for the Reds? I thought he played really, really well last week.
Hunter, Fred, no. Oh, he scored the try, didn't he?
Yeah. But
try,
I thought his
actually.
all-round game was very, very solid.
Yeah. What was his name? I had him.
Josh Fluke, Hamish Stewart.
Hamish Stewart.
Hamish Stewart.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I was impressed with him, but yeah, they're going to be doing it tough.
I do think the Reds, if they can get some ball wide, maybe to Pyre on the wing defensively, the Chiefs did concede a few points to the Reds and to the Waratahs, and if they have that same sort of we'll just score 20 points in 20 minutes when we need to mentality, that's a good Reds backline outside of the injury at 10. And like Lawson Creighton for Super Rugby debut didn't disgrace himself last. So, yeah, I mean Vunivalu, Hamish Stewart, Hunter Paisami, Tate McDermott. There's a lot of Harry Wilson's obviously a great ball carrier. There's a lot of points potentially in that team. So if it's a clear night in Brisbane, maybe look at the over.
Yeah.
And,
What's
points?
the line's still at 7.5, 8.5 for that?
I was 7.5 last I checked. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Yeah. So
we'll see situations from the last Friday evening at Suncorp where it really blows out late on. I don't know if Trent Barrett's the Reds defence coach though. So.
Wow.
I know you're a big fan of his work, Paul.
Little crossover there.
But before Paul goes on to Trent Barrett rant, do you want to talk to us about 4-speed blues, Richard?
Sure thing.
And give us the odds of you staying up to the end of this game too.
Everyone will be up. Midnight start on a Friday night. Can't wait. 1v8 on the table. Obviously the Blues playing some good footy and on an 8-game win streak. So can't see that coming to an end here. 23.5 point favourites last time I checked, which is quite a big line, but they're playing well and they've been pretty reliable betting team, and they've picked a pretty good team, to be honest. Akira Ioane's back, so it's a big in for them. Anton Segner playing 8, interesting. So obviously resting to Tutu, but then apart from that, the back line sort of Caleb Clark's back, Christie Barrett, Tuivasa-Sheck, Rico's getting the break. Bryce Heem playing centre, AJ Lamb, Zane Sullivan. So pretty good backline, really good backline. But it's never an easy task travelling to Western Australia, playing the Force in Perth. Force, they've had the 2 wins this season, but they're coming off that big sort of loss to the Tars and a loss to the Rebels. So they're probably, and then obviously last week they had COVID the camp.
Still be
so I haven't seen a Force team. No, I have actually. It looked like there wasn't any key outs that I could realise, but not exactly writing a thesis on the Force starting 15. So they played last year. The Blues had a 10-point win. The Force were actually, apart from I think they had a big loss to the Hurricanes, but they were actually all right in the Super Rugby Pacific game.
Should have beaten the Chiefs at home.
Yeah. And they lost to Blues by 10 points and lost that great
moment against the Crusaders where the Crusaders played without a fullback for the last minute and cost themselves a bonus point in the spot in the final.
8-point loss to Crusaders, 10-point loss to the Highlanders, and 1-point loss to the Chiefs. So
I'm very disappointed about that.
I was devastated.
So I don't know. I think I'll be starting on the plus here. We saw the Blues. They're sort of. I think they'll win and they'll get the points, obviously. But we saw against the Drua, they're sort of like, they relied on a few intercepts. Obviously the Force play a very different game than the Drua, but it might be a little bit more structured. In the 8 meetings between these two, the Blues have only won by 24 or more on one occasion. So yeah, it's different Blues teams, obviously, but
6-day turnaround after a pretty physical encounter for the Blues as well.
I think there'll be some bruised bodies.
Playing at midnight your local body clock time is never easy. Just ask the Warriors some of those games they had to play up in North Queensland at weird times.
Yeah, exactly.
Body
So,
going to sleep.
yeah. So, and I think we saw, I don't know if you saw the interview with Tuivasa-Sheck last week. He had his ice pack on his shoulder after the game, and they were like, "Oh, it's your shoulder. You ready to get out of the injury?" He's just like, "No, just a few big hits, like." So yeah, they would have been a bit sore, and the fact, if the Force are fit, and not too much sort of impact from COVID going through the camp, then I don't mind the plus in that game.
He would have been happy not to be a part of the Warriors team last Monday.
He would have been, Paul, but you've already had your chance to tee off on the Warriors in the advantage line, and I'm going to rein that in and talk about the Waratahs versus Crusaders, which I think could be a fairly similar scoreline to the Warriors Storm game. The Crusaders, obviously, I was very high on them. I think I said they were going to score 70 points. They should have scored 70 points. There was 4 or 5 bomb tries in the first 30 minutes alone, so they've made a few changes this week. The notable ones are Richie Mo'unga, Ethan Blackhead have been given the week off. I think Joe Moody's picked up an injury as well, so he's not
out for the season.
Is out for the season. That's a loss. I don't know if it's a can't beat the Blues sort of loss, just the way Moody plays these days. But Sam Whitelock's back. Pablo Matera found his level against the Rebels and was a real terror. So I think, against another team, he's probably going to have plenty of opportunities to get out into the wider areas and cause a bit of chaos. Outside of Fergus Burke at 10, who was like serviceable earlier this season when Richie was on his sabbatical or whatever we're calling that, you've got Fainganuku, Reece and Will Jordan back 3, and Havili and Goodhue in the midfield. Goodhue looked not back to his best, but certainly as good as you could have hoped for his first Super Rugby performance off such a devastating injury. So, but I think the Crusaders, they'll be able to get parity up front against the Waratahs. It looks like it's going to be another rainy day in Sydney on Saturday, so that might sort of put a limit on how many points they can score. But I think I don't think that they'll be too concerned about having a forwards battle against the Waratahs, put it that way. And then with the backline the Waratahs have named as well, there's a few defensive question marks in there, shall we say, between Lalakai Fekete, Isaiah Parisi, Mark Carr. I'm not even going to try and say your last name, but my apologies to Mark and his family, but I do think that the Crusaders will that the conditions aren't going to trouble them. They go well in the I don't even know what the line is, but it's going to be probably more of the same. It just depends on how many passes go to hand this week. And
I think it was about 21 and a half last time I checked.
And they have Will Jordan back, which I think is
22 now.
Is a huge in no matter who he's playing for. So pretty keen on the Crusaders this week. Should we get to some best bets now that we've touched off all the games, unless there's anything else?
Sounds good.
I feel like you've got a best bet on the tip of your tongue, Paul, so I'll let you lead things off.
Well, you guys bag me when I have a best bet.
Only when your best bet's paying $1.12.
Well, how much does it have to pay?
It can pay whatever. It's just your best bet.
Well, then you can't bag me then if it can pay whatever.
You have a value bet under $2 that loses, I'll bag you though.
Crusaders head-to-head, $1.08.
Oh, you guys are
Paul, best bet for round 11 of Super Rugby.
Chiefs minus.
Mm-hmm. Richard?
Force plus.
Oh.
Yeah, I talked myself into it.
Did not think that word coming. Moana Pacifica have drifted. They're now 280 head-to-head, and they are 6.5 point favourites. I will take that. Moana Pacifica plus 6.5. Anytime you get the Rebels 6.5 point favourites, I feel like you need to take that on. Got a bit of value for the punters, Paul?
Moana Pacifica head-to-head, 280.
I like it. Richard?
Try bet on the Drua vs Landers, either team by 7 or under, $3.20. I think if they wouldn't be surprised the Drua win, but if the Landers win, I think it'll be a lot closer than the line suggests. So I love the price for
that. Same game, half-time, full-time double. Highlanders, Fiji and Drua, $13.
The turnaround.
Love it. Absolutely love that.
It's worth a shot. $13. That's a price. Who are we putting on upset alert? I think we've got a few candidates this week.
Drua.
I'm going
1 to 12.
Brumbies.
Brumbies?
Yeah.
I'll take Moana, so we're all on different. I think we had a pretty good week upset alert. Oh, we're all on the Brumbies last week, so we're flying with our upset alert picks. So if we can go 3 out of 3,
that'd be impressive.
So what a bonus back, obviously Super Rugby bonus back and same game claims still going strong every game this week. You know where to go to check out all the terms and conditions on the Punters Lounge. What's your favourite bonus bet on the card, Paul?
Chiefs 13 and over.
Chiefs 1 to 12, 260.
Chiefs 13 and over. And the Chiefs are also a multi-anchor at $1.33. What's your multi-anchor?
I've just gone Crusaders alternative point start minus 7.5, $1.25.
Very hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few points put on by Crusaders there.
And we're all about our big calls at the TAB these days. I've already given mine. The Highlanders into Drua, I think $13 shot counts as a big call for the week. You guys got any big calls you want to?
Does it have to be betting related?
It can be whatever you like, Richard.
I'm going to go 2 or more intercepts in the Drua versus Highlanders game.
Intercept tries or just intercept?
Oh, intercept tries, yeah.
Paul's got something for like the 2027 World Cup you want to shout out?
I'm just wondering who the coaching staff will be in that World Cup. I'm wondering who the coaching staff will be in this World Cup. Anyway, big call. Oh, crikey. Big call. Can't do it. One Pacifica 13 and over. Well, what was it? What was your one?
The Drua to be behind at halftime but lead at full time.
One Pacifica 13 and over.
I love that though. That's right up my alley. All right. Tip and comp time. I think it was obviously the only game that separated us last week was the Hurricanes. Richard, unfortunately, on the wrong side of the 8.5 there, but it's still tight as anything. Paul leads the pack on 23 correct tips. I'm 1 behind on 22. Richard not far behind on 20. So all still to play for. I think we might be going a few different ways this week. So perhaps an opportunity for a bit of separation there. First of all, obviously, Chiefs against the Reds. Friday night, 7.5.
Chiefs.
Reds.
Chiefs. Force 23.5 against the Blues. You're obviously on the Force, Richard.
See?
Paul.
I'm going to go Blues.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I'd love to know how many Force players are still in ISO, but I'm going to lean the Force. I think, yeah, I'm going to Force 23.5. Drua.
No question about that.
Can I see anyone in Waratahs plus 22.5?
Not me.
Nah, Crusaders.
One up.
Anyone Rebels 6.5?
I'll go Rebels. Got to make some points back.
If you want to. I will be on Moana Pacifica, obviously, because not taking the Rebels minus 6.5 if they were playing Stokes Valley. And Brumbies versus Hurricanes, 3.5 is the line for the visitors. Richard?
Brumbies.
This is bad. I'm going.
If it was a Friday night game,
Yeah.
I'd be going the Brumbies.
Yeah, I'm sticking with it.
Sunday afternoon.
I can see the logic there.
Because I think if the Canes win, they win by 10 or 15. And so I'm going to go the Canes. I think they can get back up for this game. Other game, yeah. I think that's the key. So I'm Canes 3.5. All right, that about does us for another week of the Pick and Go podcast. If you've made it this long, thanks for hanging about. And we have a little treat for you.
No, we don't.
We do.
What?
They the punters.
It's
What?
Super Rugby is heading to Suva, and to celebrate,
We're going to give a trip away for 2 to dinner out?
if you just want to DM at Skintfella on Twitter, he's going to organise that.
Okay, we're not going to do that.
Giveaway separately. No, we have a little promo code for all everyone who's made it this far. If you just go into the TAB website, and I should have really had the specific instructions up here, but
You've made this up.
I have not. You wait till you hear the promo code. So if you go to the deposit page, and then there's the promo code box at the top, enter promo code UPTHEDRUA, all one word, UPTHEDRUA. Hit submit. You'll get a little $10 bonus bet to use on the rugby this weekend.
Up the Drua.
Up the Drua.
One word.
One word. And you don't have to use it on the Drua. If you want to, that's up to you. You don't have to use it to bet against the Rebels.
So where do you go? You go to the deposit page.
Deposit page at tab.co.nz. There's the nice promo code box there. Enter your promo code.
Up the Drua.
Up the Drua.
Submit.
And
then you'll get a $10 bonus bet in your account to use
on the
Super Rugby this weekend. And it's what? Limited to the first 250?
I think it's first 250 customers before Saturday or Sunday sometime.
Sunday.
Get in while you can,
Get in now.
Yeah.
Well, when you hear this. Yeah.
What are you going to be using your bonus bet on, Paul?
I'm not allowed to have them.
All right. Sure.
So what would you put it on?
Hypothetically. Just, for the punters.
Oh, the Drua. Up the Drua.
Yeah, have to be. Drua 13 plus.
On that note,
wow.
I think we've said up the Drua about 12 times in the last 5 minutes, but I'm going to say it one more time. Up the Drua.
Up the Drua.
We'll talk to you next week.
Vinaka.